Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to EO Network Podcast. Adrian Matt here, your host, and tonight we have a very different side of things because we're going to be joined by my colleague of mine, none other than Pugtato, who joins us here in this episode. Welcome, Pug.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Pug, today's episode is going to be very, very interesting because I know you play sports,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that you actually have a lot of fun doing it. However, I am one of the people, probably one of the rare people out there in the world that says that sports aren't really necessarily needed because there's a lot more cons than pros when it comes to sports, which I'll get to in a minute. But go ahead and tell the audience real quick the type of sport you play.
I play soccer is my main sport. I don't play anymore, but I coach. But I've been involved in soccer for pretty much my entire life.
Okay, so you coach, so you probably understand exactly what I'm about to say in just a minute. But this is the reason why I believe sports are actually more negative than positive. Now, I know people are going to go, whoa, hold on. Sports are more negative? What? You're an overweight guy, you don't do sports, you don't do exercise, you don't do. Not at all. Not at all. In fact, on paper, that might be the case, right? That might
Yeah.
sound as if I'm a person that is willing to go out there and say exercise is wrong because I say sports is wrong. That's not the case at all. I do exercise every single. Do I play sports? No. I do exercise every day. I do cardio every single day, but I do not play sports. The reason why I say sports are bad, though, it's not because of the physical side of things, but it's rather because of the mental side of things, the psychological factors. What I mean by that is basically people who play sports, the people who play them, always are etched with the idea that they must go above and beyond in order for them to be accepted or in order for them to be seen as some impressive star. And they beat themselves over it. They do what they can to make sure that they, again, go above and beyond so they can impress everyone. And when in reality, mentally speaking, they're hurting their own selves. Would you agree?
I mean, I get that, but I think it is a very mental game. Like I've had mistakes that have, kept me up at night. I'm like, dang, I wish I didn't make that mistake, and it's kept me up at night, but I think they're all obviously cons. I mean, it's not like sports are needed, like you said, but I think they are a good thing to have in a society because it brings kids together. When kids come together after school, and maybe they even know each other before then, and now they've got something to relate to each other about.
But is it all the things, or is sports all the activities that people can do to really get to know each other? In that case, obviously, no, right? There's other things that people can do to get to know each other. Sports being one of the factors, absolutely. But if you were to eliminate the idea of sports, there would still be many other activities that are non-sports like that can get people knowing each other. And I would like to just preface this by saying that I get where you're coming from too, right? People get to interact with each other, but is it really worth it though? Because I would say there would be more bullying that would come out of interactions than more of a friendly manner. In fact, on paper, again, everyone likes to say that sports is all about friendly interactions, that you respect each other, that there's a sportsmanship, but really, that's all hogwash. People who play sports have that sense of machismo in a way, that sense that they believe that they should be respected by everyone because they are at a certain level that allows them to believe that they are high and mighty, and therefore it reflects on their behavior and attitude towards people who are below them. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, as a soccer player in America, I definitely get some trash talk to me about my sport. Not a lot of
There
people
we
are
go.
great
See?
fans of soccer in America, but that doesn't mean I should say, what, soccer's bad. We should get rid of soccer. I was born with a passion for it, and so that's why I kind of think it's important because there are other kids who are born with a passion for these sports. We shouldn't we shouldn't say no. You have to find something else to do. You can't do this. Like we should allow them to do these things that they love, and be on a team together and learn those leadership skills and just be able to have fun and stay active.
Well, that's what people would want you to believe that is what sports is. And I wish it was like that for the most part. However, it is not the case because of exclusion, honestly. Sports, they often create these uh, social hierarchies. And they basically, when it comes to people who are not as athletic, right? They're going to be excluded no matter what. They're going to be made fun of. They're going to be made fun of
Well,
by
yeah.
all the other people out there.
Look, everyone's at that moment where it's two captains and they pick everyone, and then someone has to get picked last, and that always makes them feel bad. But at the same
Right.
time, there's people who are smarter think they're better than people who are dumber. So I mean, we should get rid of school, so that way they don't think that.
I think a lot of people out there can definitely learn from not bullying people out of sports. Sports is really the hub for all of it. Sports is actually really, I mean, it brings people to that mentality if you really think about it. You know, when you're at school or whatever, that mentality isn't really as present as much as what it is for sports. Because of so many different things. Like I said, I mean, there's increased pressure when it comes to that. There's high expectations to perform. It could lead to a lot of stress, anxiety, but also, like I said, it could lead to more of a exclusion. It could lead to a lot of the outcasting that a lot of people tend to suffer, unfortunately. And that's what I'm talking about. A lot of the people who play sports are involved in this culture in which they deem as normal, and then it leads to more problems and issues. And at that point in time, that's the issue that I find when it comes to sports. Again, sports, when it comes to a physical standpoint, absolutely fine. But is it worth it? There's bullying, and I said there's exclusion, and there's increased pressure. All that stuff, Pug. And the thing is, you have to understand that, Pug, probably one of the main reasons that there's bullying as well is because of sports.
I mean, I'm not
Honestly,
gonna disagree with you there, but I think there's disrespect in everything a lot of people do. You know, there's at work, there's people that will disrespect each other. At school, there's people that will disrespect each other. Walking down the sidewalk, there's people that disrespect each other. We should teach each other respect in general, not just in sports.
okay, so you're right when it comes to that. Absolutely, disrespect comes in all forms, right? It doesn't matter if you're playing sports or not. You could be at school, you could be at elsewhere, and you can get disrespect. And I agree with that 100%. But you're more than likely to be more disrespectful towards people who are in your team or in your sports team than to be perhaps maybe someone at school or someone who's walking down the sidewalk and somebody will be going after you for being different. Although, I guess, I mean, at the same time, it goes both ways in a way. Yeah, sure, maybe there's a lot of people at school who definitely get bullied. They don't even play sports, but that could be one of the main reasons because a lot of people who don't play sports always get picked on anyway. So you might be at school and get picked on for what reason? Because you're scrawny, you're skinny, or you're overweight or whatever. You don't play sports. There's been a lot of times, this is a personal anecdote, but there's been a lot of times that I would tell people at school that I never played sports, and I would be a huge target. In fact, going back to another personal anecdote, when we talked about gym and all that stuff, of course, when we talked about that, there were a lot of times that the top two students would pick out their teams or their teammates. I was the last one each and every single time, each and
Yeah.
every single one. If it was volleyball, I was the last one. If it was soccer, I was the last one. If it was basketball, I was the last one. And it made me feel, now forget about me for just a moment, because yes, I know this is my personal anecdote, but what I'm trying to say is that if that happened to me many times in the past, it made me feel as if, wow, I have a sense of worthlessness in a way. Imagine all the kids, imagine all the teenagers today that are dealing with that in a world where, unfortunately, bullying has gotten worse as well because of social media. At least back then, about 15 years ago, social media wasn't really a dominant form that much. It was rising, sure, but it wasn't really too much of a dominant form. But still, bullying was pretty brutal back then. Now, imagine social media added into the mix. Now, all these people, all these victims are going to be targeted completely, both not only at their school, but also online as well with posts and all these people with their Instagram accounts and beyond. It's absolutely disgusting, which is why I say that sports really brings more bad than good, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say more bad than good, but I think the pick your own team thing is the dumbest thing in the world because someone has to get picked
I agree.
last. And so that always singles someone out. But I don't want to be that guy, but I feel like sports players hating on non-sports players is such an American thing. Like I feel like Europeans aren't going to do that, right? Middle Eastern isn't going to do that. South American isn't going to do that. They just kind of live their lives, you know what I mean? Either you play sports or you don't. Who cares? But in America, I feel like a lot of like basketball players will say, "You don't play basketball?" That's kind of weird. Like even among other sports, like football players will think that soccer players are dumb because their sport is dumb. And so I feel like it's such a disrespect thing in America that I think all of the population has to work on it. I don't think it's just a sport thing.
Now, I do agree in a way that, Europe, for example, I mean, many European countries kind of do emphasize on the importance of respect, diversity, things like that. You're right. When it comes to the United States of America, it's a little bit more ingrained to be a part of that culture where it's okay to make fun of people who are different. It's okay to make fun of people who don't play sports, or it's okay for people to make making fun of those who are not athletic. But it's still absolutely, it can occur in certain contexts. Peer pressure, all these social dynamics are present across different cultures, different countries around the world. So even though the United States probably is a little bit more of a likely country for it to be a part of, it would still be present in Europe and many other countries surrounding it, and really around the globe. Because bullying, at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, it's extremely, or at least it's viewed as a highly valued activity. And unfortunately, it really is a highly respected activity that if people who don't really play it or people aren't that good at it are always going to be faced with teasing and bullying and all that stuff. And not many people understand that. Many people look at sports and go, oh my God, it's fun. However, the problem with that is that there are so many internal issues within that no one wants to talk about it. Literally, no one wants to talk about it at all, unfortunately. And to me, that's just absolutely depressing. It's sad. It's very, very, it's just very sad to me that there are a lot of times that people do not get their voices heard and that they're always going to be picked on each and every single time. And yet here we are still continuing that culture without really discussing much about it. Do I agree 100% with you, though, with the whole picking? Absolutely, because eventually someone is going to be picked last. That right there to me was probably the dumbest, or is the dumbest thing anybody can ever do, right? If you're a teacher, if you're a gym teacher and you allow that still, please change that. Absolutely just change that, because there's no point. Honestly, you're going to just try to make someone feel bad about it, and that's just horrible. I hated that with a passion each and every single time. I hated that each and every single time, where you just have to stand and the top two players pick, I'll take this guy, I'll take that guy, oh, I'll take him and that. And then the rest of the people, it's just so humiliating at times. And I just feel sad for the people out there who have to go through that. It's really disgusting. If I had a way, I would destroy that idiotic concept of just picking your teammates.
Well,
Again, playing the sports is fine, but yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to share my own story since you share one of yours. I would hang out in the library a lot whenever I didn't have class, and people obviously would read a lot of books in there and stuff. I never really read books. It was never really my thing. Like I couldn't sit down and read, a really long book. But a lot of people in there who would read books would make fun of me for not reading books, and they'd say I'm dumb and all this other stuff. Which it is what it is. I don't really care, but do you think that means we should also get rid of like libraries and reading books? Because it's kind of the same thing, no?
I will disagree in a way, and the reason why I say that is because it's still, I would say it's much harder for a person to really assimilate to the culture of sports than that of books, right? Sometimes people do, I guess, belittle you for not being, a person that really is involved in books. I mean, there's been a lot of times that I've seen that happen many times that people, I mean, usually it's ironic because, I mean, for the most part, the people who are really into books and so forth, they're usually the ones who are belittled a lot. But it's still absolutely possible, and I've seen it many times where people who are into books and read a lot of books belittle those who aren't necessarily as literate, and they kind of disrespect them in that manner. But in that case, obviously, it's horrible that people do that. But it's still easier to assimilate to that style of culture than the sports itself, right? Should we eliminate books? Absolutely not. But when it comes to sports, see, there's a difference, because sports, at the end of the day, right? What are you really learning out of sports? Yeah, sure, you can talk about teamwork, you can talk about leadership, but can't you learn about that elsewhere? Heck, you can learn about that reading books. You can learn about that watching videos, watching movies that have great themes about that. Whereas books, on the other hand, if you were to eliminate books, not a lot of people would gain a lot of knowledge on things. So let's put it in perspective. If you were to eliminate sports, will that really, truly 100% affect a couple of things when it comes to the human mind? Not really. You can really have your own, you can really do your own cardio. You can still go to the gym. The gym obviously is not really, obviously it's not a sport, but you can go to the gym to still do, making sure that you keep yourself in shape. Whereas if you were to eliminate books, what does that really do? That harms the human mind a little bit more than sports itself.
Well, there's a lot of like a kid will go to his dad in a baseball game, and that he'll remember that for the rest of his life. He'll have that connection with his dad. You're not gonna get that out of a book. Like it's one of those things where it's that connection. It's that love for the sport is the main reason why it's so popular.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of sporting events that people can actually join in, and they can have a lot of different memories by watching that and all. But I just truly think, though, you have to really look at the circumstance, and you have to look at the pros and cons. And unfortunately for me, sports brings more cons than pros. And if we lived in a world where sports were officially gone, which obviously that's never going to happen, never. I don't care how many times people are going to preach about this and all that stuff. Sports are always going to be a thing. I mean, it's always going to be a thing. It's never going to be canceled. But I would rather have no sports, and a lot of people feel less humiliated and feel less inclined to really be as worthy than to really have just a good time maybe with your parents for about 2 hours or 3 hours in a stadium where sure you might create your own memories, but at the same time the people who are ingrained in memories in a negative manner by getting bullied, that might outweigh the positive ones at the end of the day. So
I mean, but isn't it a bit
we
counterintuitive? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you can go. We're about to wrap up here, but yeah, you can go ahead.
Isn't it a bit counterintuitive to be like, say that sports players always solo people out, but now you're kind of soloing sports players out, if you know what I mean. I kind
No.
of worded that weird, but no what?
So if let me understand if okay, so correct me if I didn't interpret that correctly, but you're saying that in order for us to, or you're saying that it would be counterintuitive to outcast sports players
I'm basically
by
saying like
just
you're kind of talking about no bullying, but it almost feels like you're kind of bullying the sports players. Like you're saying you're kind of talking about how they bully everyone and kind of
well,
generalizing them.
and yeah, is it wrong to generalize? Absolutely, 100%. I think it's unfair for me to do that. I think it's unfair for everyone to do that too. There's a lot of people out there that might go, sports players, geez, for the most part, they're just jerks and all that stuff. Obviously, now I know for a fact that that's not the case, right? Every sports player is not bad. I'm sure there's a lot of kind-hearted ones for sure. But the thing is, how do we know that? How would we know just by, I mean, I think it's just, and forgive me for saying this because it's going to sound very ignorant. I know that for a fact. It's going to sound very ignorant, and I apologize for that. However, and I could be, maybe I'm wrong when I say this. Maybe I am. And I'd be the first one to definitely admit that I was wrong. But for the most part, if you meet someone who's a sports player, more chances than not, they have an ego in which they believe they think they're better than you. More chances than not. This is coming from a personal experience, though. Every single person has a different experience, right? So, again, this is coming from me. So, maybe in general, maybe I could be wrong. But personally, for me, from what I've seen, um, most people have egos that play sports, unfortunately. But listen, it was a great conversation for sure. I mean, I just want to thank you for taking the time to actually join us here today. And it was a great conversation, great topic. I mean, obviously, I mean, if you're definitely down to attend for more podcast episodes now down the road, you're more than welcome to, Pug. But again, everyone, I mean, I do want to thank you guys for taking the chance to listen to this. It was a great topic for sure. Pug, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I just maybe we'll do more in the future. We'll see.
Sounds good. Well, hey, thanks everybody for joining again. As always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share the videos for the Eon Network podcast. I will catch you guys next week live in the podcast for Eon Network.